Hello there, everyone, and welcome to the Tony Robbins podcast. Welcome, Tony Robbins. Welcome, welcome, Mary.
Thank you, Sage.
I always like to attend my own podcast.
We always enjoy having you. It's such a funny.
You ladies do such a beautiful job. I don't have to even show up. It's great to be with you.
It's great to be with you.
And with all of you listening in or viewing in, thank you for taking the time to visit with us. We hope that today will touch your heart and provide you with some beautiful tools to enhance the quality of your life.
Yes, and we wanted to touch upon the power of the spoken word, and that our words, whether verbally or in the written word, they carry an energy, they carry a currency, they carry words create.
And words destroy.
They do indeed. They do indeed, or they can bless, or they can be harmful. And it's something that innocently we as human beings don't always put enough attention to, possibly.
Yes.
And so we're just inviting you, as we invite ourselves into the awareness of the words that we choose, because it is a choice. It's a choice, the words we speak. It's a choice, to choose words that are kind, compassionate, loving, considerate. And sometimes we can fall asleep and we don't realize that words emit and that they land somewhere, and how are they landing and what is the effect of that. Therefore, here we are.
I love you, Butterfly.
I know you do. We have very different approaches, and I love how we all come together.
Me too.
It's complementary and it's different, and I'm sure that you can find that in your own families for those of you who are listening in. Mary, thank you for being here.
Of course.
What are your thoughts on words? And then I'll kind of give my view of it.
Sure. Well, as you guys were both talking, I was just thinking about if anyone is listening and they're like, oh, the power of spoken word, like I know this, I got this old chestnut. I think that it's all, when I think about it now in terms of where the world is right now, in many ways, I think this is one of the central issues of our time. Like that's what, a lot of ways, what the arguments are about out there. It's like, what can you say? What can't you say? The fact that we're even having the free speech discussions in 2021, it's like that all gives credence to the idea that words are so powerful that there are sides of people think that maybe there should be censorship. Should there be intervention, whether it's big tech or big media or independent media, and all these fractions that are happening right now. I really think the root of it has a lot to do with the power of our spoken word and what we're trying to convey, and the frequency, like you said, that all carries. So I think that it's more relevant than ever, and it starts with our own utterances around a dinner table, at a coffee shop, in a classroom, and then of course it goes broader and at scale and with deeper intensity. But what comes out of our mouth is very important, and we should wake up to it.
I agree. I think it's not just the spoken word or the written word. I think it's the words you use within yourself as well.
Amen.
So let me give a context of how I look at it. I look at it as the quality of your life is the quality of your emotions. It doesn't matter how many people love you, respect you. It doesn't matter how many great children or family members you have. You're not going to have a very fulfilled life unless you're feeling emotions each day that enhance your experience of life, whether it's love or gratitude or grace or whatever, excitement, passion. But emotions are created by meanings. And all of our meanings are shaped through words primarily. Yes, we can have images and thoughts, but the thoughts tend to get into words very quickly. And the words we select, and many times we don't select them consciously, develop habits. Most of the research shows that almost 58% of what we do in a day is habitual. In fact, somewhere I read, I don't know how they come up with these statistics, like I mentioned it once before, but there's like 165,000 individual thoughts a person has in a day. The only problem is 95% of the ones you have today were the same ones you had yesterday, so your life doesn't change. But think about it in words. Meaning, words create meaning. Our experience of life is not life. We only experience the part of life we focus on and that we label. And when we label, when we bring words to an experience, it changes our biochemistry. So think of it this way. I call it transformational vocabulary. If you want to know what'll transform your emotion, transform your life, a different set of words will. I know that sounds overly simplistic, because what makes meaning happen is what's happening in your body physically but it's also what you focus on, and it's the label you give it. And so imagine like we all have the same experience, like a funnel. We all have the same visual, auditory, kinesthetic, all these triggers come in. But my habit was to have a cookie cutter of pissed off and frustrated, angry. So that generates the emotion. Like some people, no matter what happens, they're angry. Some people, no matter what happens, they're fearful, they're worried, they're overwhelmed. And the words we use, literally, the words you attach to your experience become your experience biochemically. So you really want to be conscious of those words. And I can tell, like, for example, if I'm really run down physically, I'm exhausted, I got to push through it, my language becomes more colorful, quite frankly. And
Colorful. Even that's a nice reframe.
That's right, colorful.
I'm sure my grandmother would call it colorful. Keep going.
But honey, you're a real master of softeners. You know, like when it's a real negative experience, you use softeners and it softens it. I remember my mom, God rest her soul, I wouldn't be who I was without her, so I totally honor her. But she always was humiliated. If someone didn't answer the phone, she was humiliated. Because anything uncomfortable, that's the cookie cutter word she used over and over again. And so she really was humiliated. She'd say it, she'd feel it, she'd experience it. And so you have to become aware of that. It's like simple ones. I always tell people, you know, I'm doing a financial book. I'm going to leave in a few minutes because I have to go do the audio recording. But I wanted to join you for this because it's such an important topic. But I'm doing this new book on the Holy Grail of investing. And one of the things I've noticed is the difference between have to and get to, you know?
That's a good one.
It's like, you know, I have to do this before I get to do this. I mean, you know, most people can have a lot of money and they're still not free because they still have to do this, right? No, we get to do this. And so it sounds so simplistic and stupid and positive thinky, but it's not. It's biochemical and it's real. I'll give you one more quick example and then I'll shut the heck up. You know, we all have a good set of friends of John and Julie Gottman. They're some of the most amazing relationship experts in the world. They can watch anybody have a conversation, a couple, and in 15 minutes conversation, they have a 94% accuracy of predicting whether they'll be divorced or not. 94% in 15 minutes. How the hell do they do that? Well, they notice the pattern of language. And one of the things they've learned is not only there are certain words that push people over the edge, as well as certain things, rolling your eyes, things of that nature as well that add to it. But they also discovered that if you have in your words, with your vocabulary, with your communication to your partner, if you don't at least have a 5-to-1 ratio of positive and negative words, emotions, experiences, you will not be able to sustain the relationship. Now, if you think about us, you know, as a family, how often in a day do I say, I love you, or I'm so lucky to have you? We all do it with each other constantly. We have like a 20-to-1. 5-to-1 is just to maintain a relationship. But words have power. They change your biochemistry. They change your relationships. They change the meaning of anything. So my hope is that as you spend time with my dear loving family here, that they share with you their perspective. But I want to plant the seed with you that this is not a minor subject. Are you a terrorist or a freedom fighter? Right now, there's tremendous conflicts in the world that's happening in the Middle East. And it's a lot of that is which one are you? And which one are you can literally make the difference between hate, rage, love, support. And so it's not a minor question, but most of our words are unconscious. They just are habitual. And if you have habitual words, you're going to have the same experience. If you want to upgrade your experience of life, if you want a greater quality of life, then maybe it's time to look at your TV, your transformational vocabulary, the words that shape you, and become aware of the ones that put you in a great state versus the ones that are negative. And some words are like playful. They're not even words. We have little funny words that sometimes we use to kind of make ourselves laugh. I just think it's worth doing an inventory. And if you do it, I think you've got tremendous power.
So there's a great list in the last episode of the Tony Robbins podcast was on mental health.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And we talked about Unlimited Power, Tony's first book. And today, while I got you, I wanted to talk to you, or at least tell our listening audience, if you haven't read Awaken the Giant Within in a while, there is its own chapter on the vocabulary of ultimate success is the title of the chapter. But there's this really great list, exactly what Tony's talking about here today. And it gives you words, and then it gives you like the alternate, like rather than saying I'm anxious, you could say I'm a little concerned or I'm expectant.
Yes.
You know, there's tons of examples.
Another one.
Okay, great. Rather than saying I'm disappointed, I'm a little underwhelmed. You know, or
instead I'm overwhelmed, I'm in demand.
Curious. Right.
That's
So
funny.
there's a huge list, and even like you said, Tone, I think there's an exercise in here where you're saying we go to those same words all the time. And if you don't know what they are, I bet your family or your friends could tell you. You could ask them, like,
sure.
What do I say all the time? And you might not even know that's what you're saying all the time.
Yes.
And the people you surround yourself will. So if you're open to feedback, open it up and ask folks that you're surrounded by. Kids often know what we're saying more than we do. They'll tell us, what do you think?
It's so true. And, we're speaking about the external written word. And Tony, you mentioned this at the beginning, or external verbal words, but it's also what we say internally, as you mentioned earlier.
Yes.
And if you miss something, it's like, oh, I'm such an idiot. Like, why did I do this wrong? Why am I so stupid? It's like, I hate it when I do that. Rather than another consideration is, all right, well, that was less helpful. Let's choose again, because life is always giving us an opportunity to begin again. And there's power from that perspective, because we're all human. We all miss. We can all fall asleep in a moment. And yet the internal language of it represents, sometimes that internal war can represent the external war. And it happens with our words about ourselves. And so, be mindful of that internal narrative. And if you do something that you feel is maybe you've missed, rather than it's like, oh, I'm so stupid, it's like, okay, let's begin again here. There's an opportunity when you actually connect from that creative space that we learn. We're meant to miss. We're meant to miss the mark. That's how we tune. That's how we evolve. That's how we grow. And from my own experience, if I'm beating myself up or having harsh words about myself, I get arrested. I get stuck in a state because mind is believing those thoughts and we're attaching to that identity for ourselves. And so, having our daughter and watching love live through her,
Yes.
watching love flow through as our nature animating her, I recognize that one of the greatest, most powerful gifts I really believe that we can give ourselves, never mind our children, is the example. A lot of people speak about self-love. Where does that begin? It begins actually with our own internal word choices. And by the way, this doesn't happen. It's not like you're going to listen to this and say, okay, I'm going to speak perfectly. There's no such thing. It's about catching ourselves. Be aware. We're so aware of what's happening externally in the world. It's my experience as we start to become aware, what am I even believing, or what are the words or the thoughts that are coming through that I'm actually believing in this moment? That's such a powerful perspective, because we can change that. We can't always change the external, but as we change the internal, those narratives that we have about ourselves, when we feel more at ease or supporting ourselves. I know this sounds so simplistic, but therefore we affect the external because there's more to offer. I watch the innocence of watching our daughter. She's 2.5 now. And, you watch the innocence of no stories, no overlays to an experience. It's just the experience.
When I just walked into the kitchen when you were in there with our daughter just a little while ago, I said, hey, what are you up to? And she said, I'm enjoying some blueberries. And that I had to, as soon as she said it, I'm like, she got that from you. You, that's part of your self-talk, but you do our self-talk sometimes bleeds out into the ethers.
Yes.
And you use that word enjoying. And I was so delighted to hear this little 2.5-year-old go, I'm just enjoying some blueberries. And in that moment, I was so grateful to you that you use the words that you do, and that's what our child will absorb. And that's often what happens. And it's time maybe you take a look at what you've absorbed and where you'd want to go now.
Yes.
Your vocabulary, your consistent vocabulary is producing your consistent emotions. And your emotions are creating the quality of your life or lack thereof.
Yes.
And it's when you beat yourself up, which I used to do a lot of myself, when you're beating yourself up, as you beat yourself up more and more and more, there's a point in which you can't beat yourself up anymore. You can't handle it. And so then people externalize it. And they often externalize it by being irritated by something outside themselves. And they usually pick somebody that's safe to do that with, i.e. somebody who they actually love and is loved by, which you see people sometimes say things to their love of their life or their partner that they wouldn't say to a stranger. And it's just because they think unconsciously it's safe, but it's not safe for your partner. And it's not safe for you because those things stack. That's why the Gottman thing is so important. And I think starting with your own internal world. It's like there's two worlds you got to master. There's the internal world and the external world. You can master the external world all you want, but if you don't master the internal world, you're going to have a terrible life. It wouldn't matter how much success or business or economics or whatever else the heck it is that you do. But, you think about it. Think of words as the original thoughts and that thoughts create. That's really what we're talking about. In the Bible, in the beginning of the Bible, in Genesis, it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. There was nothing but darkness, and God said, let there be light, and there was light. Those are metaphors for what God has given us, I believe, what our creator, whatever your idea of our creator is, has given us the ability to create our life, and we create it with words. Your relationship is the culmination of the volume and the words that you use. If the words you're using over and over in your relationship are not supportive, not inspiring, not loving, not passionate, not caring, not compassionate, we can predict what your relationship's going to be like. Any relationship is the sum total of the communication that's happened. So you got to think of communication. It isn't just words, obviously, because your nonverbals, you're rolling your eyes or your true smile or whatever you're expressing is a huge part of communication. It's bigger than words. But the words are the origin of the organization of your thoughts, which then produce the emotions, which out of emotion comes your actions. Your actions change if you're pissed off than if you're feeling, curious. Or if you're feeling delighted, or if you're feeling, excited about something. And so I think taking an inventory of the consistent words you use, the emotional words you use, not every word. And this isn't like, Saturday Night Live, Stuart Smalley, if you're old enough to remember that, going to the mirror and going, I'm good enough, I'm strong enough, and by golly, people really like me. But there is power in incantations. I transformed my life through incantations. When I was a kid and there was nowhere to go and I was on my own and my mom kicked my dad out and then she chased me out as well. And I'm walking through the streets in the rain trying to figure out what to do. The gift in my life is I had read some books. And I remember, again, I recommended this before, the first book I really read was The Magic of Believing by Claude M. Bristol. And he kept talking about programming your mind with words or incantations. And incantations are not affirmations. You can affirm things, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy, and your brain goes, BS, you're not happy. But if you speak something with total congruency, consistency, intensity, you model what you're speaking. And we are creators. We forget we're creators. Most of us think we're the manager of our circumstances, but we are the creators of our lives. But if we're unconscious, then we will just be managed by the environment. It's like a spell over and over again. It's a form of hypnosis, but you can hypnotize yourself into your better self, or you can hypnotize yourself into your lower or weaker self. We all have weaknesses and strengths. The question is who's in charge? And incantations to me are still invaluable.
So incantations, and another example of where words have such power is oftentimes just in a different context. And while I have you both, I didn't tell you guys I was going to do this, but vows. And I wonder, well, there's a lot of emphasis placed on, for example, wedding vows. You guys have been married over 20 years. Do you recall your vows? Is there things that come up to the surface in your marriage at this point in your life that you're like, this is what we got into this for? Well, what's the secret?
Well, I think the problem with a vow is if you speak it once, it's a promise. But I think a vow has to be reaffirmed on a regular basis. And we've done that for 24 years now at this stage, which has been the most magnificent gift of my life, honey.
Thank you, Tom. And it evolves.
Yeah, without a doubt.
It evolves. Like if I think of maybe 26, 27 when I got married. I don't recall, but I was a baby. And what a vow meant to me and what it means to me today, it's different. And I look at it as ever evolving, really. If I think of, answering that question from the perspective of where I am here today and what love means to me, it's more about I vow to claim responsibility for my experience of life. I vow to accept. Mm-hmm. I vow to allow. I vow to embrace all the parts of you and all the parts of anybody I love, for that matter. Because I feel like that can be such a disconnect. We have these strange expectations of our beloveds, of our partners, of our parents, of our children. And yet we so innocently are doing the same thing, maybe in a different form, but what we want the other to do. So I really believe that the vows are really more of a way of life. They're a practice.
I see you guys use that now, and just I mean, in just in your kitchen conversation. But I wonder, it's very trendy now for people to write their own vows at their wedding. I'm wondering if you guys have any recollection. I'm actually asking because I've never seen your. Do you remember?
When people do their vows for a wedding, very often they're trying to make it sound so beautiful and everything else for the setting and so forth. But some of the simplest vows, I vow to love you no matter what happens to the end of this earth and beyond. Those things in your soul are the ones that really matter, as opposed to what sounded beautiful at the time. We had Hafiz was part of ours. Yes. We had so it was a beautiful experience. So yes, remember them, but on a day-to-day basis, it comes down to what's most important. I think the way to bring vows into it is, I think there's ceremonial vows, and then there's a core one. Right. It's like life's purpose. People write life purpose statements, and they're like 4 paragraphs, and it looks beautiful, and they put it on their wall and never read it again, right? It's better to have something that's at your core, that's so simple that it shows up in real life in a pragmatic, practical way, as opposed to this beautiful thing that you never read again. And I think, so I don't think people should change their vows and weddings. I think it's a beautiful tradition, and I love ours as well. But I think it's more important is how are you going to be? My vows are to be loving, to be passionate, to be curious, to be there for you through thick and thin. Like, what are the ways you're going to be?
Right.
You know, that matters to me more, and that's something you can measure on a daily basis, as opposed to something that sounds beautiful. So both have
goes
their place.
hand in hand. I think it's Emerson that said, "What you do speaks so loudly, I can't hear what you say."
Exactly right.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
Well, I look at vows from the perspective of more of a way to live and to be, as exactly what Tony said. And it's more internal of what I can affect. So I vow to forgive myself and others, you know. I vow to understand. It's really, as I'm speaking, it's like the St. Francis prayer of, Lord, make me an instrument of your peace where there's hatred.
Beautiful words. Beautiful words.
I feel like there's such wisdom and such profound, wisdom and understanding through that particular prayer. And it's really, it's the turnaround of, you know, what I want to get to who I claim to be, you know, to console rather than to be consoled, to understand rather than to be understood. And I feel like when you have that position, that willingness, it's a humble position, because you recognize that you're here to give, you're here to embody and to express that love. And when you commit to that, it's a vow not only to your beloved, it's a vow to yourself of how you commit to your own life.
Love that.
Because then loving is a given. Loving is a given because it's our nature. And if you vow to tidy it up, you vow to uproot what's false. You vow to, you know, to have an inner reflection and take responsibility for anything that gets in the way of loving your beloved, because mind is doing what mind does. And as we believe on true thoughts, it gets muddled, it gets clunky, it gets painful. And so that I really feel is such a powerful position. And sometimes in romantic love, it gets lost in, hey, I'm, you know, romantic love, it's like, wee, and it feels good. And it's like, you know, I want this, rather than I'm committed to being this and simply offering that no matter what.
I think it's, we've talked about this before, relationships a place you go to give, not a place to go to get. If it's a place you go to get, it's there. And I think vows are beautiful, but what really matters is what's consistent, right? What you habitually speak, what you habitually think, what you habitually communicate, that's what matters. And the value of incantations is like a vow. You're doing it over and over again. I would say to people, it's not enough to understand these things. Like right now, if you're listening, you go, okay, this makes sense. You know, there's some words that piss me off, make me more intense, and some words that probably soften, some words that would probably break my pattern when I'm upset, make me laugh. Maybe I should discover those words that will move me emotionally when I'm doing my RPM, when I'm doing my planning. The reason I don't just write down what the result is, I don't write down a to-do list. It's like, what am I after? What's the result? And why do I want it? But the why is the power, and the different words. I can put a couple of words there and it totally changed my state. Again, have to versus get to. If it's impact, if it's making a difference, if it's based on love, if it's contribution, there's certain words, everybody has different words. Those words for me move me. Now I want to go make this thing happen, as opposed to it's a to-do list that I got to go after. So I think it's the most important thing for you to do is do the inventory and to get serious about the power these words have in your relationship, in your own self. I mean, our daughter, as you described, she doesn't have those internal dialogues of I'm so terrible, I'm so screwed up, I'm so anything like that. So she's able,
Whoops.
No problem.
Whoops.
no problem. She's got our vocabulary in those areas and a lot of your vocabulary in those areas. And so
Halo has her own vocabulary.
Friends,
Halo, friends.
Halo. So those habits are the most important habits of all, because they're the ones that shape how you think, how you feel, and how you interact. That's your whole life. So think about how you create if you wanted to create a new life, what new words would you use to describe things when you're really upset or frustrated, overwhelmed, that would change you? Instead of overwhelmed, I'm in demand. That's how you make myself laugh. Like, oh, this is so overwhelming. Why is it? There's a million calls. No, I'm in demand. I'm in high demand. That's a damn good thing. It sounds silly, and it's designed to be a little silly because it breaks my pattern. Versus listen to people who are angry or sad or depressed or overwhelmed, and they have a very specific vocabulary that they use over and over again to put themselves in a trance. Because listen, every emotion's a trance. When you're angry, it's a trance. It isn't who you are. It's a certain state that you're going into. And some people have done it over and over again. For some people, it's feeling sad over again, or depressed, or worried, or feeling injustice. I mean, like today, people are offended by everything. I'm offended. It's not my preference. You know what I mean? I'm offended by what they do. I prefer they use different words, but I can't control them. So let me focus on what I can do. Different words create a different life. And if there's anything you're going to take from this conversation, I hope that's valuable for you, would be to really get clear on the words that make you feel strong, good, empowered, moving forward. And notice the words that make you disempowered, angry, frustrated, overwhelmed. And then notice the words you're using. That starts with you. Then what about the people closest to you? And what are some substitute words? And you can make it fun. It's like create a little menu for yourself and playful things that you can do. I think that's one of the simplest gifts you can give you. Sometimes, years ago, when people started to know who I was, and I developed a certain level of fame, I started getting stopped, and it went through different stages. But people didn't stop me like, my movie friends in those days who wanted an autograph, or these days everybody wants a picture. They stopped me and they wanted me to help change their life right now. And I learned, I want to be able to help somebody in a few seconds. And so I started focusing on what I call profound knowledge. Profound knowledge is anything that's so simple that once you understand it, you can immediately change your life or someone else. And transformation vocabulary, the words you use, the words you speak, the words you create with, is one of the simplest tools in the world to change it. But it still requires a habit. And that's why I recommend incantations. Coming up with certain things you're going to say over and over again, which is how I built me. I created this Tony Robbins guy. He's me, obviously. But the part that dominates, that shapes who I am, I created by certain words over and over and over again. That isn't the only thing I did, but it was a huge part of what I did because it's laid the foundation for the different kinds of thinking. Different thinking creates different emotions. Different emotions create different actions. Different actions create a different result.
Well, that's incredible.
Nice word choice off the menu.
Thank you for coming to the table today, Tone.
My pleasure. I'm going to go out.
Please.
You guys will hopefully be seeing soon this new book. I'm doing the final third in the trilogy of my financial books. It's called The Holy Grail of Investing. So watch for it. Actually, I think you can get it online now, but I'm going to go do the audio of it. But it's of the 3 books I've done, I'm thrilled with all 3 of them. But there are some breakthroughs that are so amazing here. In a world where people have such uncertainty right now about where the world's going, what to do financially, I decided to do a little bit of what I did in the beginning on a different level. I decided to go for interviewing 13 masters of the universe. I did, 50 for Money Master the Game. But most of those people were different types of investors. Most people don't know that if you're trying to build your financial future, it's all about compounding. And if you look at the S&P 500, the basic stocks, and you see that's done about over the last 20 years, a little over 9%. Private equity, private credit, and private real estate has a very different response. It's averaged 14% plus. So it's 50% better per year compounded. So I interviewed all these people that make 20% and more, north of 20%, compounded for 20, 25, 30 years. And I pulled out the principles and the tools of what they're doing. So I'm so excited about it. So it's a little commercial. I'm donating all the money. I'm not looking for anything from it. Again, Defeating America. But I hope you'll get this book. It'll blow your mind. It'll take you beyond the words. It'll take you to the pathway to creating true financial freedom and knowing things that most people have no clue about. So I'm going to go up and do that. I'm going to leave the balance to you guys. Love to everyone listening. I hope you find some words that make your life more magnificent, more beautiful, more compassionate, more alive, just more fulfilling than you've ever been before. That's my heartfelt prayer and wish for you. Thanks, ladies, for letting me join you.
Thank you, Tony Robbins.
Alrighty. Hi, Sage Robbins.
Hi, Mary. Nice to be back with you.
Nice to be back. We're here on the B-side, so to speak, of the Power of the Spoken Word episode of the Tony Robbins podcast. And Tony had to run, but we've got a few more thoughts on this subject. You know, Sage, I'm excited to have this conversation with you, not for flattery, but people truly respond. I feel so lucky to witness the way folks respond to your ability to offer words of comfort, to offer words of healing. When someone is grieving, it makes me emotional. When someone has just received a diagnosis or after a death, oftentimes people call you. And you're able to be not just a shoulder for them. And I'm wondering if you are you aware that that's something that is a real gift of yours?
The language of love is an art, and it's an art that is at times, I can't say lost, but maybe there's less focus on it. And, you know, in a different day, say in the 50s, there was so much, by the way, that might not be historically correct whether it was the 50s, but that's where my mind took me. There was such a focus on etiquette or
manners,
politeness, and you know, that can be a part of it, but if it's paired with dogma, or if it's paired with right and wrong, and then you do it to be nice, and you know, it does feel nice, but it's beyond good and bad, or right versus wrong, or it's beyond civility or political correctness. It's really about love, and the language of love. It has a tonality to it. It has a sense to it. It's courteous. It's steeped in gratitude. You know what? As I'm speaking right now, I don't think I answered your question.
You did, and you did right off the bat. We've been calling it spoken word, and we've been sticking with word, but right away you said it's the art of the language of love. And when I was thinking about I didn't even know how to go about asking you that question, but I've heard you do it. I've heard you take people's hands when they seem inconsolable, and oftentimes I find myself naturally thinking like, I would not know what to say in this situation. And you, I don't know, you have a way of disarming people, comforting people, grieving alongside of people, but not, it's not, somehow it still has like a buoyancy to what you're able to do with your word. And I realize that's why, because it has that frequency of the language of love. It's not some word you're using. It's not some technique. It's not some script. And it's love.
That's interesting, Mary.
You also manage a lot of folks. You manage everyone in this home that most people say functions more like a hotel than a private home. You, over the course of a day, will manage many folks back at the company. And you're really holding people accountable to their word. And so we can talk about the power of the spoken word, and you bring that to life and what that really means. And you'll often, some of what I even overhear as I pass through a room of you having conversations with people is you'll call out any kind of trouble talk. And maybe out in the world, they might call it gossip. You might call it something like trouble talking, or if there is a schism, you'll often say the phrase, are you adding to the schism, or are you working towards a solution? And just little hacks, I would almost call it like that you offer people. And it feels generous because there's no blame to it. But you use these words that I think call people so you don't get ensnared by like truth and lie and words that have real charge and black and white and right and wrong kind of vibes. You open it up to people and say things like, you know, are you untying a knot? Or can you speak to that power of the words that you offer folks a little bit?
Sure. Well, I really believe we're either adding to the harmony of a circumstance or adding to the schism, and how do we do that? Well, the schism is a disconnect of, he should do this, she should do that. He's whatever judgment or opinion we have. Harmony is we meet in this space of understanding of willingness to hear and to perceive, and also what you commit to not being a part of anymore. Gossip or trouble talking, it's talking about other people. That's lousy. Have you ever experienced that? It's really like the beginning of bullying, of what one would call to be quote unquote bullying. What is it? It's just human beings unconscious sharing, trash talk, garbage, or whatever you want to call it, or trouble talking about another human being or a group of human beings. And how is that even helpful? Maybe it strokes your ego. Maybe it makes other people laugh, but is it the fullest truth? Is it, I don't know, it feels lousy to have it done, and we all have. Mm-hmm. It's what's happening right now on social media. You post something and this world doesn't need any more opinions. It doesn't need any more judgment. It's love that really transforms our life and our reality. And so harmony is our nature. It's our nature to, when we are in right mind and we're in our heart, it's natural to be harmonious. And when there is a confusion, how can I bring clarity to that? Well, it isn't about talking about what's wrong. It's really just noticing. It's like, okay, I sent out an audio the other day to our team at the company, and the notion was, as a leader, and by the way, we are all leaders. This isn't a hierarchical leader, as to lead, to notice that it's like, hey, I can focus on the problem, or I can focus that this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity for us to come together, to create, to understand, to appreciate, to possibly it's the people are calling it a challenge or a problem because there's a confusion. It's like, okay, let's come together.
Right.
Let's come together is such a powerful position. Because we're better together. It's my experience.
And I love that about you. You really will never stand for any kind of I was laughing earlier because I've never heard you say trash talking. you always call it trouble talking. And I don't know why that made me laugh. Because it's almost like you going into the realm of sports, which made me almost uncomfortable. But you really, this is not just you talking. This is who you are. Even if as a team we're, sitting in the workroom and having a cup of coffee and something comes up that someone on the team or something, you won't stand for it. And usually the first thing you'll say is like, bring them here. And did you ask them, or were you clear about your request? Or you'll look to bring that person in. There's no behind the back talking. There's no, gossip. There's none of that. And I just think that I've learned that from being around you, that the stories just stop. And it's like, okay, then that is what contributing to the schism looks like.
Yes.
And so unless you are going to try to harmonize and bring that person close and work out whatever caused the disturbance in the first place, it's not helpful. Any other way you do it is not going to be a balm, as you would call it.
Sorry, Mary. No, go ahead.
No, please. This reminds me of before I came to work with you folks. Previously, I spent time in journalism, and there's a term in journalism which is used, in all over in pop culture now too. It's just like, are we on the record? Is this on the record? Which is like, if you're sitting down with a journalist and you have a story, sometimes you might want to share something off the record, which kind of means like, if I share this, it's in a vacuum and it doesn't go anywhere. And my time as a journalist, I was aware of that, and I realized like that really does happen. Like if you watch TV shows or something and people are speaking on the record or off the record, that really is how things can work. But for me personally, one little reminder I have is like your life is on the record. Our whole lives are on the record. So if you're going to talk in one room when someone's not there and then say something else in the room where they are, like I got to believe that's recorded somewhere. And I don't want to do that. And you have really, I don't know, you've brought that to me and you've put that in ways that I'm like, yeah, like you can't do that. We can't do that.
Well, that's a beautiful notion, on the record, that life is on the record. And if you think about it, say if you're out with, people from work and there's a new individual that's, possibly a part of your company, and they're speaking about how this person did this or said this. And it's just one more thing to consider. I love the notion of fullest truth, because it's a piece. If it's a fraction, it's this person's possibly experience, but is it their experience or is it their opinion the individual? And I feel like that gets lost. And so, thinking can be a lost art. Actually discerning for ourselves and reflecting. People, when we so innocently believe that the truth is coming externally, it's like somebody says something about somebody and that's their opinion, and that might be their experience in the moment, but it's like, what's more important? Your own experience of the individual. Don't miss that. We give our power away to others and believe their thoughts about places, people, religions, or groups of people. And it's like, have we actually even experienced it? It's secondhand information. We're disconnected from reality, and the reality is our own experience. And reflecting and tuning rather than presupposing that what an individual or what the news or what social media is saying about an individual or a group of people, that's on us. It's on us to connect, to tap into a deeper truth. And I feel like that is such a powerful perspective, because that connects us then. We've all been misjudged. If you're human, we've all judged and misjudged both of others. And have you ever had somebody that you thought that was, the most horrible human being, and then life offered a circumstance for you to experience them differently? I think that's love. To be given, choose again, another opportunity to
a fuller truth,
to receive somebody, to experience them, for them to experience you. And in that exchange, that's just soul meeting soul, human meeting human. And sometimes as we point the finger outward, or we jump too quickly to a conclusion, rather than having our own experience, our own tuning in, our own thinking and reflection, not judging, but pondering, I feel like that's a position where it includes, where we look to notice and appreciate rather than demonize.
And sometimes the words that folks use when they're telling this juicy story can be very seductive. And even if we don't come into a conversation believing any of that about, say, the person that's being talked about, it's like, someone can get going and it's like this little carrot dangling, like, this is pretty juicy. This is just coming to me right now. I watched one time, we were at a party at your family's house in Canada, a lot of people over. And I watched someone, your dad, I often talk about your dad. He's a strong, silent type, man of few words. And someone approached your dad and had this, I didn't even know who they were talking about, right? But I watched like the energy. You could just watch from afar and see the body language and the energy of this person going to your dad and just unloading on your dad, like about someone else. And your dad was just like, is that right? And he said, is that right about and so sometimes, like, for me, when someone's really giving it to me, I have a hard time, even if I don't agree or if I disagree with what they're saying, sometimes I'm like, well, what am I supposed to say? Like, clearly this person really believes it. And I chuckled, and I really learned from your dad. And there's like not a day goes by where I don't think of that moment. I've never told you this, but your dad just going, is that right? Like, what does it look like to not give something any energy? What does it look like to not feed into a story, buy into a story, throw a log on the fire? It was just like, is Is that right? I was like, this is classic dad. Just like, that's how you just kind of let it roll off your back. Doesn't give any, okay, that you've done your job for that person. You've been an ear, but you're not adding to the schism. You're not adding more knots.
And what an extraordinary, powerful question.
Right.
Is that right?
It's actually really accurate, the word of it.
Right. Is that so? You know,
Is that true?
Is that true? It allows us to ponder and to reflect. So I feel like that is a very powerful practice, because that's really what that is. So if you're at a dinner and maybe having a few drinks and people are chatting, or this person's talking about their husband or their wife or their neighbors or so-and-so at work, you know, catch yourself not to contribute. That's one way. Another way is offering something that you've noticed that is maybe a fuller truth, something kind and beautiful about this human. Or, you know, as our parents are a different generation, we have nothing nice to say, don't say nothing at all.
I love that.
There's wisdom in
Thanks
that.
from
My
Bambi.
mom used to always say that. But, you know, that's truth. That's truth. And so there's enough. Same goes on social media. If somebody posts something, and even if mine judges and it's like, oh yeah, and you know, we can get so quote unquote righteous about what our opinion or what's this or what's that. You know, once again, I don't know that our opinion is really even relevant. But you know, where there is darkness, where there's darkness, let there be light. When you're wondering what we can do in the world where there are many wars happening, where there are people in such turmoil or are terrified, let there be light through our words. If you don't know what to do, rather than offering an opinion, be a gift, be a blessing, offer kind or considerate or thoughtful. We love you. We're praying. Whatever is true, I don't know. I can't speak for you, but whatever your heart offers, that is the language of love. And let there be light. That's how there's light. This divine orchestration needs a vehicle. That happens to be you, and it happens to be me. And so as we choose wisely our words, our actions, that allows us, not perfection, but that allows us to be a vehicle for that illumination, that love, that kindness. That's what light is. It's like we all know somebody when you walk by and it was just a kind smile. That's light. You're feeling a light of their smile, of the beauty of their own beingness. There's no words to that, but there is. It's a language. And so I just feel social media is a platform, and it can spew hatred or confusion, more accurately, or it can cultivate light, can cultivate love. It can be a currency of love. That's more profound than we recognize. And when you say on the record, I think that's a stunning thought, to put love on the record of life.
That's
for
gorgeous.
all of us.
That's gorgeous. Social media has also made people a little cavalier with what they're willing to say because of the veil of it, and that because it's not looking someone in the eye. And like, why is it difficult to look someone in the eye and say simple things sometimes, like, I love you, thank you, please forgive me, I'm sorry, that exercise that we do. Those simple words are so powerful, yet it's so easy for folks to say what they hate, like you said, offer another opinion. And you know, this isn't meant to be preachy, but just keep an eye on any word that you put out there, because there is an energy to it. You've got to believe that if this whole life is energy, which you can scientifically pretty much prove that it is, don't argue with me on that one, then so are our words. So we gotta pay a little attention to it.
One thing that I can mention is that if somebody comes to me and they have, say, you know, a diagnosis of some form, that is not at the forefront of my mind. We all meet right here in this human experience, in this moment. And that's where I experience a greater truth. That's where I experience a greater beauty beyond the story, beyond the narrative, because we all have that. And if you've lived long enough, hey, you've had a diagnosis at times, you've lost your health, you've gained your health, you've lost a beloved. And so we, you know, if you're alive, if you're listening to this, we've all known loss or pain or grief or whatever label we want to put on that.
That relates back to, and I hope you heard this in the first segment. For me, what really sticks, the phrase that he uses is the words we attach to an experience become the experience.
Yes.
So when you say you miss the experience, it's like, right, because what story or what other narrative are you overlaying on the experience that's giving you the experience that you're feeling?
The emotion.
It's like the old adage of like, there's the flat tire and there's the story about the flat tire. It's like, it's just a flat tire.
Yes.
But all of these words and emotions that we put on it, great. Now it's builds into this. Now it has this greater energy and this greater frequency. And we do that with everything. It's like, it's if we really look and we get honest, we do that with everything.
I think that's the real, life is just showing us ourself. It's a reflection. And when there's a willingness to see yourself rather than the external demonization or the external blame, that's where words become so charged. They become so fixed with these identities. This group of people, they're horrendous. They're this. Is it true, all of them? Cannot all of us, every single religion, race, culture, whatever, haven't we all done horrendous things at times? So is it human? I heard the other day, it was like, they hate in America, they hate in this country, they hate in in this country. The hate is within us. It's not a collective. It's a collective of the world. It's a collective of our asleepness. It's a collective of our own disconnect from this divine reality. And so we're demonizing life, we're demonizing God, we demonize, others, and we miss the beauty of life. I remember when Tony, this is probably about maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and he had an internal bleed. He had an esophageal ulcer, and he lost 4 pints, if you remember at that time, 4 pints of blood. And so he was here at the house, and he had went unconscious. He was white as a ghost. And this one particular doctor, I explained what happened. He was on the phone and he said, Tony needs to get to the hospital immediately. It's dangerous. And I said, what do you mean it's dangerous? If he doesn't go there, he could die. And Tony's in bed. I was like thinking of logistics, calling, and Tony wasn't certain if he wanted to call an ambulance yet. And my heart was pounding. I remember like everything all of a sudden got really, really, really quiet. And yet I could hear my own heart and it was pounding. And I was feeling so terrified. And I came in this room here and I said a prayer. And the thought came, because a lot of times, we say a prayer and we don't realize that we co-create. I saw this, or I heard this man's name, Dr. Yadigar. He wasn't our doctor at the time, but I thought, gosh, I need to get his number. He's coming to my mind. That's a prayer answered. It's an impulse, an instinct. Where does that come from? It's divine. All of it is information when we tune in. So I called him. And I said, doctor, I'm terrified. I'm here. And they're saying to take Tony to this hospital. And the doctor said, it's incredibly dangerous. And he said, hold on. He's like, okay, tell me exactly what happened. And I told him, and he's like, listen, everything's going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay. Yes, I recommend you take him to the hospital. And everything's going to be okay. And that reassurance, he's become a dear friend. And that reassurance in that moment when I was so terrified and when I had forgotten, I'd forgotten that everything was going to be okay. I was focused on the, gosh, I might lose Tony. And
the words that someone else offered you, that it's dangerous and it's implying it's not going to be okay.
Yes. And so the notion that it's all is okay, all is well. If I think about when you were mentioning those individuals who reach out at times, I think that's the most powerful gift that we can offer is just the reminder. It's not telling somebody, it was his state. It was his tone of voice. It wasn't just, he was like, well, Sage, all is well. You just go to you just go to the hospital. Or don't listen to, it's not, he wasn't telling me. He really offered his heart and his voice. It's the tonality and the cadence and the warmth and the presence in that moment that was like, whew, I will never forget it. And it was just, and then it just became functional. We packed some clothes and took Tony to the hospital.
But
and by the way, all was well.
That's right. the delivery of his words to you and the words that he chose. And I know it sounds almost hokey, some of the catchphrases like, your word is your wand, or be impeccable with your word, or tell the truth, or at least don't lie. All these folks say it differently, but and if you just grab onto that, then it sounds simplistic, and it sounds, but it's like, what is a living, breathing example of what that looks like? It's what that doctor offered you
Yes.
in just the kindness, the words of comfort in that moment when someone's reaching out and saying, what do I do?
And you,
Offering that.
offering that, and Mary, you said interesting about the notion of lie. And the truth is we can all lie at times.
Of course.
We can all go to sleep at times. You know, we all meet in that human experience. And yet, once again, if life is about, we have the opportunity in this moment here to begin again or to choose again, it's like, okay, you know what, hon? That wasn't the fullest truth. And that wasn't the fullest truth. And I just recognized as I was reflecting, I want to share this with you because I want you to understand my heart, or I want you to understand. And I'm sorry I didn't share this then. I don't know why it didn't feel true, but it feels true now. Sometimes as well, if it's like, oh my gosh, I lied or he lied, it's like, okay, maybe in that moment, but what can we offer and touch this moment? Because that's where life reconfigures. That's where life reconfigures. And it's like, oh my goodness, he lied to me. She lied to me. How dare they? It's like, okay, where have I lied? Because that's what we have the power to change, or we have the power to affect.
That's right. In the first segment of this episode, Tony offered the biblical verse from Genesis. Let there be light. This one's from Isaiah chapter 55, verse 11. And it says, so shall my word be that go forth out of my mouth. It shall not return unto me void, but it shall accomplish that which I please. That sounds like positive thinking to me.
I see a boomerang. I saw,
That's right.
the image I saw in my mind's eyes, I saw like a boomerang that went out and it returned and it had like all these lights and illumination on it. That's what I saw.
Yes. That's a beautiful metaphor, I think, for our words.
It is.
And how it's like, maybe that's what karma is. There is some sort of like, it doesn't go out into a void. There is something that comes out and comes back.
Thank you for joining and tuning in to the words that we're here to share, which conveys our hearts and our love of you for raising your hand and wanting to find a kinder, truer way. I do. I meet you in that. I join you in that. And so for those of you who are listening and tuning in once again, please join us. Let's love this world. You know, let's offer our words, our actions, our gestures, and let's spread the power and the gift of love. I trust if you're joining in, that is your deepest heart. So thank you. God bless, and look forward to connecting soon.
I know I'm just hesitant to even talk about it because I know for some people it might sound airy-fairy, but Dr. Emoto's work,
Yes, of course.
where he exposed, I don't know how you'd say it, exposed water structures and then looked under a microscope at the crystalline structure of water that after exposing them to words, like the difference between I love you and I hate you, to water. And then how that changed the structure of that, you know, and you could argue with that and say it didn't have the scientific rigor of that studies are supposed to have, and that's just hokey pokey. But our friend Billy, our Tony's trainer, and our best friend here,
Our godfather.
our
as well.
godfather of our
To
child. Billy is like maniacal about conducting experiments of like with the control group and in a dark room and like double blind and repeating them. And I think he's done this more than like 70
Yes.
times. He's done it with rice, eggs, lavender, sprouts. Like he loves this. It'll come in every time he's in the middle of one of these experiments. And he'll have, you know, and everything will all be sealed off, and he'll have one just to get, in case you've never heard of this. So say everything else is equal. Say he has these 3 pallets of sprouts, seeded sprouts. And to one sprout, he'll go in the room. They're all in the same room. There's nothing else in the building. The same lights come on every day at certain timing. And he'll say, I hate you. I hate you, sprouts. I hate you, sprouts. And then in the next sprouts, he'll say, hey, Halo. Shush, Halo. In the next one, he'll look at the next pallet of sprouts and go, I love you, sprouts. I love you so much. I love you. And then the third one, he just ignores. And it's just neglected, basically. You repeat it, the same number of and you watch these sprouts or rice or whatever you have grow. And inevitably, every time he's done it more than 70 times, and the sprouts like wilt that have been said, I hate you, sprouts. And the ones that he's told, I love you, are like, he uses the word, I'm like, well, what are they like? He's like, they're robust. You wouldn't believe it. They're beaming. And then ironically, the worst off ones are the ones that are utterly neglected. It kind of explains why people might stay in a negative relationship, let's say, rather than just get out altogether, because there's still some connection you're getting, even if it's negative. Point being, long story short, words, the power of words, you're changing like molecular structure. It's an energy. You're impacting a sprout or a grain of rice or a human being or whatever that is that you are offering those words to, implicitly, explicitly, or beyond. What do you think of all that? You buying it?
Well, I think it's beautiful. I think it's beautiful that what I appreciate about Billy is that, once again, he's curious enough to have the experience and experience the reality himself, and to show the power of love beyond the power of spoken word. And I think that's super cool. And we love you, Billy.
We love you, Billy. You are super cool, you weirdo.
Maybe you're going to read something.
I couldn't find it.
Oh, okay, good for you.
It's not meant to be. Sorry, Isaiah. There it is. Okay, last one. Okay. Tony.
So I'll tell you a 2-second story that might create a context for you. I remember decades ago, I had 2 partners in business. I think I was about 31, 32 years old at the time. And both of my partners were older than I was. Both were much more accomplished than I had been at that stage. And we had an experience together as partners where we're negotiating a deal. And in the deal, I was young, and I still have this tendency, is this, I put everything on the table. Let's just make a fair deal for each of us, thinking that that would be the same reciprocated on the other side. And it was not. It was a disaster. And without going through the boring details of the story, what I shared, the other side used disproportionately in a way that was really ridiculous and unfair to try to leverage us instead of, putting together a fair deal. But in the midst of it, as we took a break, because it was getting really heated, one of my partners, he just kept going on and on and on. I was like pissed off. I said, this pisses me off. I mean, I shared with him honestly. So my words inside my head was like, this pisses me off. This makes me angry. It makes me mad as hell, right? That's what I was thinking. But my friend, my partner, one of them, was talking about this makes him furious, and he's livid and he's enraged. And he talked about, I could kill them. And he was so intense, and I'm trying to keep my voice quiet because it wasn't that quiet. I mean, he was like yelling. And because he was so intense, I was like, calm down, dude. It's like, it can't be that bad. Like, I was just pissed off. I was just angry. But what struck me was at the same time I'm feeling angry and pissed off, and I'm thinking he's a little crazy right now. I'm trying to calm him down. My other partner, who was much older and wiser than probably both of us, been around the block more than a few times, very, very successful man. He didn't even seem to be negatively moved by it. And I remember pausing and looking at him, and I was trying to calm this guy down. It's not that bad, right? And I looked at my other friend, and I said, like, what are you feeling? You're being real quiet about this. And he goes, well, I feel a little peeved. And I thought, no, excuse me. He said, I feel annoyed. That's what he said the first time. I'm annoyed. I was like, annoyed? I was annoyed that he used the word annoyed. It's like such a terrible sounding word. Annoyed? That's all he was, annoyed? Don't you understand? And then my friend's like, don't you understand? And I said, calm down. It's not that big a deal. We can handle it, right? And so I said, annoyed? I mean, that's such a weird word, annoyed. You're just annoyed after what they took advantage. They did this. And so as I got upset, my other friend got upset. He got calmer. So I thought for a moment, I don't think I've ever seen him that angry in all the years I've known him. And I said, don't you get angry at things like this? He goes, no, not really. And he said, I was a little tinkled. He literally said tinkled. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. He said tinkled? He goes, yeah, it's tinkle. And I was like, I don't understand. He goes, well, what's the worst you've ever felt? He goes, I don't know, tinkled, peeved, annoyed. But I couldn't help it in the middle of the experience to notice that one friend is just out of control. I'm feeling really angry, and he's feeling annoyed, peeved, and tinkled. And I said, well, what's your belief about getting angry? And he goes, well, if you get angry, the other guy wins. And I thought, interesting. So the reason I tell you this story is we all had the same event, but we didn't have the same experience. His is furious and rage, kill somebody, and his is annoyed, tinkled, and peeved. And once I saw this, I saw it everywhere. I couldn't help but notice. It's like I noticed how people use certain words over and over again. But my wife Sage here, my Pearl, she uses words like sugar and shoot. And what's some other ones, Mary?
Miffed. Or flip. Oh, flip, this is bad. Or, oh, that didn't work.
Isn't it beautiful?
Yeah, that's her favorite phrase. But isn't it? No matter what's going on. I remember I was so depressed and I was so frustrated. I was so overwhelmed. I didn't know what to do with my life. I didn't know how I was going to make it happen. And I always grew up poor too. I had no economics, trying to figure out how to get money for my next meal. And then eventually, I got a car and I'm sleeping in my car, this Volkswagen. And I started doing these incantations. And I still do one right before I go on stage. Every single time. I've done it for 46 years. That's how long I've been doing this. And it's, I now command my subconscious mind to direct me in helping as many people as possible today by giving me the strength, the emotion, the persuasion, the humor, the brevity, whatever it takes to show these people and get these people to change their life now. And I would do that hundreds and hundreds of times, and I'd say it in different tones. Right now, I'd emphasize a different word. And I was transformed by that. It awakened a part of myself, an unstoppable part of myself that I still use to this day.
Love joins. Love connects. A lot of times we so focus on possibly what to say or what to do. And it's my experience that being with somebody.
That's right.
I had a family member call today, and she was really, there was, a confusion or an argument, if you want to call it, in their relationship. And I looked to just join her. I've been where she's been. She was so distraught. And we've all been in a state of confusion and said words that possibly were harmful or hurtful, or experienced it on the other side. And once again, it's so easy to look at what another said, or, he was so mean, she was so mean to me, or whatever that looks like. But truth be told, if we're blind, we can all, it's less kind. And so I just joined her. I listened. I was with her. And reflected that love. And that is powerful. A lot of times we as human beings, and I can only say this because I can go blind in this, we get so focused on the doing. We want to fix something. We want to help something. And, there's nothing more profound than to join someone
That's
where
it.
they are.
It's true. You join with your words, with your spirit, with your beingness, paired with words. And you don't, the other thing that, as I'm like picturing you doing this, is you don't you join, but it's different than getting into the trenches of the muck of whatever's going on in someone's life, whether they just found out their partner's cheating on them, or their child has cancer, or they have, you don't assume a superior position. Even if someone's coming to you and asking you, even if they use the words, I need your advice, you join and never, it doesn't feel like, an advice columnist, wagging a finger, I think about when Beck, our friends, we've talked about Beck and Siri on this podcast before, and Beck gave us a phone call one Thanksgiving, and, Siri was going in to just have a routine hip surgery. And that's when they did a blood test that found out that in fact she had cancer, she had leukemia. And I remember the phone call and the distress, of course, at the shock of something like that. And again, these are friends, dear friends of ours. I was speechless, dumbfounded, more accurately, of even how to be there or what to say. And you did a few things. One thing, do you remember this? Like one thing, it was like, okay, we're not going to say we're not going to call this cancer.
I do. I remember that moment. We were in Sun Valley, Idaho, and sitting on the side of the road in our truck, and Siri and Beck just called. And, as she was speaking, what I noticed is I remember hearing her say, and I went in she went in to go get her hip done. She needed a hip replacement. And if it wasn't for the routine blood work that she had to have her hip replaced, she never would have found out she had leukemia. Right. And so the thought I had was, oh my gosh, what a miracle. Thank goodness she went in, and thank goodness her hip was bothering her, because if not, this could have been silent, and circumstances could have been much further along. So the miracle, the gift of her needing the hip pain in her hip was a catalyst to her going to get tested, and that was a catalyst to her, getting this. Because if you think of what is a diagnosis, it's information, and that information is saying, hello, pay attention to me. Help me, support me. And that's what she did.
Right. But if you're listening to this and you hear this story and your first thought was not, oh, what a blessing, nor was it mine. And I'm saying that is, I think that makes a difference. Mm-hmm. Like Tony and I, you've heard us in the previous segment here, we tease you about, it's not just your little softener words. It is also your ability to say okay, rather than just believing there's good in anything, even if it's a cancer diagnosis. Mm-hmm. Well, what a blessing. So grateful they could catch it when they did.
And that narrative, even the diagnoses, the identity of that, I have cancer. And that a lot of times can be how could it not be in moments, all consuming. And we get disconnected from how extraordinary that life was so supportive in the timing of that. The timing of that was what Siri needed in order to heal this. And I found that to be extraordinary. And, a lot of times, Tony was speaking earlier about the incantation. We can also have a negative incantation. I have cancer. Now that's information. And that's information that your body is needing some attention and some medical intervention and help and support. So there's many different factors. I'm not simplifying it or dismissing it in any way, shape, or form. And yet just the awareness that to not have that be a continuous dialogue, because I have cancer. It's you think that it's what's the difference between I have cancer or I'm healing? Mm-hmm. And so it's also noticing the miracles, is noticing the miracle of life, the divinity of this moment, the fact that we are alive. And, that is something that I find for my own self. If there's moments that I forget, or if I'm feeling overwhelmed, or I'm feeling scared about something with my own health or my family's health, I'm reminded that all is well. And that the information alone is a catalyst for change.
I am wondering if you would speak to a little bit, and I know that this is something for a lot of reasons that you don't talk about and you probably don't care to talk about, but I'm going to ask. Feel free to decline.
Okay.
When folks call you, if they have already received a diagnosis, mm-hmm. If they're having one of those dark days of chemo or, whatever, that everyone out there listening, I'm sure, has different levels of degrees of familiarity with the brutal battle that folks can go through for their health, fighting for their life. Mm. But I'm just wondering, when someone calls and asks for you to hold space for them, be with them, join them, offer them something when when times are dire, could you give us a sense of what do you say?
Well, I believe we're all healers, and we all are born with the power of that gift. Tony spoke earlier about, the power of an incantation or the power of prayer. And once again, it's the spoken word. And there's an alignment with life, one of the gifts of I'm sorry, I'm pivoting here for a moment, but one of the gifts of a diagnosis is a lot of times it's a wake-up call. We can all get so conditioned in our life that we fall asleep. And then something like that, it's decimating. It can be rearranging, but in that disrupt is a better word, it causes us to reflect. And I find that is the power of awareness that life is a miracle, because all of a sudden death has come closer. And so people are they're not even willing, they're just noticing, wow, this reality, that intentionality of word. And I'll share from my own experience. I was, maybe 4 years ago, I was diagnosed with a pituitary tumor. That was a wake up for me. That was a wake up to say, gosh, my body was speaking to me and I was ignoring it. There was an opportunity to tune in, to bring greater harmony, to support myself. I had so much extension externally. This was a time of an inward flow, and it served me so massively. If I think of where my life was then 4 years ago to today, I'm so extraordinarily grateful for that wake-up call, because it felt like a smack.
You wake-up call, that works. I think that's a clear metaphor for people. One word you didn't use just now, but you use all the time, and I love it, is, do you know what I'm going to say?
No, not at all.
You say it in the context of relationship. You say it in the context of if two people are having like a conflict in their relationship or in their family, or if they have had a health challenge, you'll say, this is reconfiguring life.
Yes.
Reconfiguring.
Yes.
And I've heard you say that word, and it took me a while for it to really soak in. And now I'm like, that's right. Like, no matter what you're going through, relationship, your health, whatever, there's a reconfiguring.
Yes.
And then the words you use to describe that reconfiguring.
That disrupt is a gift that the uncertainty, even the pain of it's calling us. And what's that call? To bring our awareness, our attention to this moment or this circumstance. And that's the power of healing. One other thing, as you know, we mentioned about war and all the layers that it uncovers. I feel something else that's just so profoundly beautiful is there's a coming together of human beings as brothers and sisters, as beyond a religion. And I think it's really so profound that there's so many different faiths, so many different individuals, so many different groups that are just praying, not for this country, for that country, but for humanity, for this world, for life, for peace. And that is unbelievably beautiful to me, and such a powerful currency of individual offering their time. Your mom, praying the rosary, there's so many different prayers and rituals and individuals and groups coming together in the name of love.
And what are they offering? They're offering their word. The word.
Coming together in the name of peace. And if we do want world peace, that peace does begin with me. It begins with you. And that's how we change the world. We change our world, and we reflect that love from there. I am harmony. I am joy. What are the attributes, the virtues, and put words to that reality to co-create with this existence, because we're all weaving this web called our lives. And prayer and, as Tony said, incantations, decrees, affirmations, whatever's true for you. We all have different styles. We all find our way home. So there isn't one way that is the right way. Look to what's true for you.